Right before I said my vows, she shocked everyone, pregnant. People always say weddings show the real truth about love. I just didn't expect mine to do it so blatantly. I was 28, marrying the guy I thought was my forever. The church was packed. The music was perfect, even him nervously fixing his cufflinks like he always did before big moments. Emily, my best friend and maid of honor, helped plan every little thing, even cried when I said yes. Then, right when I was in the middle of my vows, she stood up. At first, I thought she was about to faint. Instead, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, loud enough for everyone, "I'm pregnant." It's his. 300 people just stopped. My mom gasped. The photographer dropped his camera, and me? I didn't react, because I already knew. 3 weeks before, I found out. And that's when I started getting ready for this exact moment. That day, my wedding stopped being what I thought it was. I woke up that morning with my phone buzzing in my hand. It was just a quick message from my mom, probably asking if I'd eaten breakfast or needed help getting ready. I slid it shut without replying. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of traffic outside, and for a moment, I let myself lie still and listen. Everyone keeps saying it's the happiest day of your life. You expect it to feel different, lighter, but I knew it wouldn't. The dress lay folded on the chair across from me. White silk, expensive, everything I thought I wanted. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it like it was a puzzle I couldn't solve. My makeup artist knocked softly and came in. She smiled, but I caught the hesitation behind it. Nobody seemed to know exactly how to act around me this morning. As she brushed my hair back, I couldn't stop my mind from drifting back to those texts. They slipped into my phone when I wasn't looking 3 weeks ago. Him and my maid of honor. Things I wasn't supposed to see. I told myself I was imagining it at first. Just friends talking. But it wasn't. The way they made plans when they thought I wasn't listening, the jokes that cut too deep. I remember sliding the phone back into my purse, my hands shaking in a way I didn't expect. I kept thinking how funny it was. Everyone called it the happiest day of my life, and I already knew it wasn't. We moved through the morning rituals with a strange kind of grace. I smiled at the mirror, let the makeup artist powder my cheeks just right, but inside, there was a cold knot tightening. My fiancé was laughing with the groomsmen down the hall, probably oblivious to the storm I carried with me. Or maybe he knew. Maybe that made it worse. My best friend came in with the toast she wanted to give at the reception. I nodded along, but I couldn't shake the image of her fingers on his phone 3 weeks ago, the quiet way she looked away when I confronted her later. It was like watching everything I dreamed of unravel right in front of me, and the part one hated the most was how normal everyone acted. We moved to the living room for the final touch. The necklace he'd given me sat on the table, shining in the morning light. I picked it up with trembling hands and slipped it on like a costume piece. I didn't feel beautiful, not really. I felt empty, like I was wearing someone else's skin. My phone buzzed again. I looked down, my heart dropping. A text from him. Simple. Can't wait to see you. I stared at the screen, my mouth tight. The anger that had been simmering since that night, I found the messages bubbled up, sharp and cold. But underneath, there was this heavy sadness, like mourning something I hadn't really lost yet. The dream that never was. The life we promised ourselves, but never made real. I set the phone down slowly, forcing a small smile. The women in the room told me how beautiful I looked. I wanted to say I didn't feel like any of that, but the words got stuck. This was the part one had to play, the bride. The perfect picture. The door creaked open. My mom came in, eyes warm but worried. "You're glowing," she said, sitting beside me. I nodded, and for a second, I thought maybe it was true. Maybe I was glowing. Not with joy, but with something harder. Focused. Detached. I glanced again at the window where the whole day was waiting to unfold. Everyone expected laughter, joy, memories worth a lifetime. Instead, I carried a secret storm inside me, silent and sharp. As I stood up to walk toward the chapel, I caught one last look at myself in the mirror. My smile didn't reach my eyes, but I didn't wipe it away. I needed to prove I was fine, at least for now. I thought it was just the calm before the ceremony, but I already knew it wasn't the calm that would last. It was a Thursday night, and I was going through his phone because, honestly, I was looking for something else, a restaurant reservation, some confirmation about the ring he promised he'd pick up that day. I wasn't snooping, not really, just scrolling through his messages to find the details. And that's when I saw it. There were texts from Emily. At first, I thought maybe it was harmless. old friends catching up, or something stupid. But then I saw the picture. My breath caught. An ultrasound. Not just any picture, but one that shouldn't have been there, certainly not from her. Confused, I tapped on the thread, reading quickly, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. He'd sent her the ultrasound. Her ultrasound, the one from her last doctor's appointment. The messages were casual, joking even. "Can't believe this little thing already causes so much trouble," he wrote, like it was some shared secret. I blinked hard, rereading the line because it felt like the world was tilting. It was a joke, right? But people don't joke with ultrasound pictures. Not this way. When I asked him about it, my voice was shaky, like I was trying not to cry but also trying to keep myself together. "What's this exactly?" I said, holding his phone between us at the kitchen table. His eyes flicked up, and for a moment, I thought he'd tell me the truth. Instead, he laughed, nervous, fake. "It's nothing, just messing around with Emily. You know how it is." I shook my head, voice sharper than I intended. "Messing around? With a pregnancy scan? That's not a joke." He leaned back like I was overreacting, like I was crazy for even asking. "Come on, it's just a stupid pic I sent. Maybe to tease her a bit, but it means nothing. You're the one I want to be with." His eyes begged me to drop it, to trust him the way I always had. But my stomach twisted. Every word he said made less and less sense. Why would you send something so personal to someone else? Who was she really to him? What else had I missed? I wanted to scream, to ask him a million questions, but instead, I just said, "Okay," because the last thing I wanted was to start a fight I wasn't ready for. That night, I lay awake, gripping the sheets, trying to shut out the images of those texts. The shock was paralyzing, but underneath was this stubborn denial. Maybe it was just a stupid prank? Maybe he really wasn't what it looked like. Maybe Emily was just a friend, and this was some messed up joke I just couldn't see clearly yet. But then the calculation kicked in, like a switch in my brain I didn't expect. I needed to know everything, but I couldn't confront him again without proof, without something more concrete. I had to play it cool, watch, gather information. If I lost it now, everything would shatter, and I'd never get to the truth. I remember looking at his face that night, trying to read it, willing him to betray himself somehow. But he was calm, too calm, like he was waiting to see if I'd just let it slide. I thought, maybe I'm a fool for sticking around, but I can't just run away. Not yet. Not without understanding how deep this went. By morning, my confusion had hardened into something colder. I felt numb, like I was watching my life from outside my body. He was at the breakfast table, grinning like nothing had happened, and I wondered if he could see the war raging behind my eyes. I wanted to scream at him, but instead, I pushed my fear down and said, I should get to work. I put on a fake smile, told myself I'd figure out what to do next. But inside, I was frozen. The silence between us was louder than any argument could be. The truth was there, clear as the ultrasound picture on his phone, and it scared me more than I thought it could. I thought I understood betrayal before, but this was different. It wasn't messy or loud. It was just cold and creeping and worse than anything I'd imagined. And I wasn't sure if I was going to fight for my life or run away. Not yet. Not while the shadows were still gathering. I told Emily to meet me in the park after work. I wanted to see her alone, away from all the noise, the questions, the fake smiles. When she showed up, her eyes were red, and she was barely holding herself together. Her hands trembled, and I could smell the cheap perfume she always wore, mixed with a hint of something sour, like desperation. She started crying before I even said a word. "I'm so sorry," she kept repeating, voice cracking. "I never meant for this to happen. It was just one time. I didn't." She broke off, sniffled, wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket. I stayed quiet, watching her scramble for the right words, the right excuse. Then, almost all at once, she began shifting blame. "It's not like I'm innocent here," she said, her voice a little stronger now, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "He came on to me. You think I wanted this? I was just lonely, and he kept pushing. I didn't have a choice." She huffed out a bitter laugh. God, it sounds terrible when I say it like that. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. Not because I believed her, but because I needed to see the whole thing, to have it all out there. I wasn't looking for forgiveness. Not from her, not from anyone. I was studying her. Every tear, every pause, every word was something to hold on to, something to use. Her apologies sounded tired, rehearsed, like she'd said it to herself 100 times before anyone else. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to destroy everything. But I wasn't a child who needed comforting." I almost laughed at the ridiculousness of it all. Like babies just fall from the sky and accidents just happen with no consequences. I saw the way she looked at me, hopeful, pleading, like maybe I'd offer some kind of mercy. But inside, all I felt was betrayal, sharp and raw. She'd destroyed the future I believed in, and now she wanted sympathy? No, not from me. She kept trying to explain, trying to make it sound like she was a victim too, tangled up in a mess that wasn't entirely hers. That annoyed me more than anything. Because drama like this doesn't play out equal. Someone always loses more. And I had. But strange enough, alongside the anger and hurt, there was a flicker of pity. Emily wasn't some cold-hearted villain. She was scared, breaking down, real in her regret. I could see that. She looked smaller sitting there across from me at that bench, her whole world collapsing as she spoke. A twisted kind of sympathy crept in, not for what she did, but for what she'd lost, how far gone she was now, just like me. As we sat there in that quiet park, the city humming around us, something inside me shifted. My voice was calm when I finally spoke. "I'm listening," I said, but it wasn't an invitation. It was a warning. I wasn't the same person who'd cried alone in the bathroom the night I found out. Hearing her sob and stumble over excuses was like peeling off the last layer of victimhood. I could play this now, but on my terms. I realized I'd been given something rare, the chance to watch her unravel, to watch how she handled guilt and fear. That gave me power I didn't have before. Power to plan, to wait, to strike if I wanted. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting, I was sizing up the battlefield. She kept begging, "Please, don't hate me." But I didn't say a word. Hate was too simple. What I felt was colder, an almost clinical detachment, like holding a scalpel steady just before making the cut. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, like maybe she was seeing someone she didn't know. And I realized, neither did I. I thought the confrontation would break me, but instead, it made me sharper, quieter, like I was folding myself into something unbreakable. When she finally stood up to leave, wiping away the last tears, I just nodded. No anger, no forgiveness, nothing for her to take. I watched her walk away, and my chest tightened, not from pain, but from a strange kind of satisfaction. I wasn't just the girl who got betrayed anymore. I was the one who'd learned the rules. And just like that, the moment changed. I thought it was a closure, but the silence that settled after she left felt like the calm before the storm. I kept staring at the wedding invitation I'd shoved in my drawer that morning. It was all still happening. I wasn't calling it off, not now. Not when they thought they could just walk away with the truth hidden under a blanket of lies. If anything, I'd make sure everyone saw what was really going on. I sat down and opened my laptop, pulling up the seating chart. It felt strange, planning something that was supposed to be a celebration, but this wasn't celebration anymore. It was a stage. Every chair, every guest, every tiny detail, it had to serve a purpose. I wasn't going to let them slip through this without consequences. The way I arranged people was almost surgical. Front row for their closest friends and family, the ones who had been buying the act. Right beside them, I placed the people who'd witnessed the cracks in the story, like distant relatives who'd asked questions behind my back or co-workers who had noticed his strange disappearances. I wanted them all watching each other, judging, wondering. The microphone setup was where I dragged the line between normal and controlled chaos. I had it moved so it faced the crowd directly, not the couple, but the audience. They wanted a performance. Fine. I'd hand them a show they wouldn't forget. I remember telling myself, if they want to perform their lies, I'll give them the biggest audience possible. It was almost funny, in a dark way. Me, standing calmly, mapping out the final stage like a general preparing for war. Gone was the shaky girl who'd cried herself to sleep the night before. Now, I was the strategist, the one who'd learned not to break down in front of anyone. Every text I sent, every call I made was precise. I told the caterer to be ready for a delay, just in case. I confirmed with the venue manager that security would be tight, not because I expected violence, but because control was everything. This event couldn't spiral into chaos. Not on my watch. When I called the DJ, I made sure the playlist wouldn't have any slow dance songs or romantic ballads at the usual moments. Instead, I picked neutral songs, almost cold, like a steady heartbeat counting down the time. The music wasn't to celebrate love anymore, but to fill the silence that was loaded with everything we weren't saying. I found a strange clarity in all this planning. While bitterness bit at me with every decision, I also felt this weird amusement at how far I'd come. Who knew the girl who once begged for answers would turn into someone who orchestrates as if life were a chessboard? Maybe it was survival, or maybe it was something darker, proof that I was done being a victim. The timing was the hardest part. I fixed the speech schedule so his moment with that microphone would come right after the dinner. I wanted his words to hang in the air, unfiltered and raw. No distractions, no laughter, just the silence that followed his performance. And then, my turn to speak. I rehearsed in my head what I might say, not that I planned to spill everything, but enough to crack the illusion. Enough to make people question. My voice was steady when I thought about it. That part inside me that trembled weeks ago was gone, replaced by a cold edge that sliced through the sadness. Still, underneath all that control, I caught myself wondering if this was really what I wanted. Part of me longed to just run away, pretend none of this happened. But that part sounded weak and small and, honestly, pathetic. No, this had to end here. With everyone watching. I remember leaning back in my chair, looking at the complete plan sprawled across my screen. Every detail measured, every moment accounted for. The tension was rising inside me, a slow burn that wasn't anger or pain anymore, but a sharp, focused will. I told myself one last time, this is it. The day the mask cracks. The day everyone sees the truth. And yet, even in that ruthless determination, I couldn't shake this nagging thought. What if it tears me apart? What if controlling every piece doesn't stop the fallout? I closed my laptop, heart pounding, caught between everything I was about to say and everything I was still trying to hold back. The wedding would go on. They'd speak, and I'd be ready. But as the clock ticked down, a single doubt crept in, invisible yet deafening. Was I preparing for revenge, or just for the moment I'd finally have to let it all go? The morning felt like a show. Emily was glowing, no doubt about that, but so much of it was performance. I remember standing near the window, watching her smooth the train of her dress with that same careful touch she always used when she was trying to hide something. We exchanged those little looks, you know, the ones that meant everything and nothing at the same time. Everyone around us was smiling. Fake or not, they all believed in the picture we painted. I kept telling myself to stay calm, but beneath it, my heart was keeping a secret rhythm. He found me then, the groom. He caught my eye and gave me that tight, rehearsed grin. I nodded. That was all. No words needed. I saw the weight behind his smile, the thing that wasn't being said. He kissed my forehead and said, "You're glowing." I almost thanked him for that because in that moment, that spotlight pulled all the cracks out of the walls and made me ready for whatever came next. The house buzzed quietly with last-minute confusion and excitement. I watched Emily move through the crowd, shaking hands and laughing just enough. Her face never faltered, never even twitched with the tension I felt in my ribs. It was like she'd learned to master this act so well that nobody, not even me, could tell where it cracked. I wasn't surprised, just a little wary, I guess. Too many years watching her hide things. He came over again, slipping an arm around my shoulder like he was trying to anchor both of us somehow. "We'll get through this," he whispered, and I felt the effort behind it. That quiet push to hold everything steady, even when it clearly wasn't. I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But that knot in my throat was telling a different story. I stayed still, pretending I wasn't waiting for the moment everything would fall apart, pretending to believe in the calm facade. Then Emily walked past. She glanced at me, just for a second, her smile practiced but cold, like she was daring me to find the cracks if I could. I held her gaze, not breaking, not blinking, swallowing the urge to tell her it was all a lie. The laughter, the happy tears just waiting to spill. She turned away, swept into the ceremony room like she owned the place, like she was this perfect version of herself everyone wanted to see. The air tightened. I felt everyone's eyes on us now, asking questions with their silence. I wanted to reach out, not to stop anything, but to warn them, to warn myself. But I stood still, hands clenched until my nails bit into my palms. The weight of all those smiles, the quiet like a drumbeat in my ears, holding everything hostage. Then he caught my hand again, fingers cold but steady. "We're almost there," he said. No hope in his voice, no desperation, just a statement. like he knew what I was thinking but didn't want to say it out loud. I looked at Emily one last time before the doors opened, watching her prepare for the moment no one else saw. The one where the mask slipped just enough to show the fire underneath. Everyone thought this day was about love and new beginnings. For us, it was about waiting for the eruption we all knew was coming. So I took a breath, steadying myself, gripping that quiet pride that I'd made it this far. Because no matter what happened next, I hadn't broken yet. The doors creaked open, and the whole room held its breath with me. 300 people, and I could still hear my own heartbeat louder than her voice. It was supposed to be the perfect moment. Emily, radiant in white, standing before everyone, ready to say, "I do." I remember the way the sunlight was hitting her dress, how everything around us slowed like in one of those movies. Except this wasn't a scene. It was real, and it was unraveling faster than I ever could have imagined. I was sitting there, my hands clenched so tight, I thought my nails would dig into my palms. The pastor's voice was steady, calm, asking Emily if she takes him to be her husband. But before she could answer, she just stood up, pale as a ghost, trembling like someone fighting against everything in their body. Everyone in the crowd went silent. You could feel the air drop out of the room. No one moved, no one breathed. Emily's eyes locked onto me first, and then the room became a pin-drop quiet hell. She didn't have to raise her voice or sob or curse. She just said it, clear, steady, and cutting. "I can't marry him because I love someone else." The words hung there, heavier than anything I've ever felt. There was a fraction of a second where the world collapsed. I swear I saw people's faces freeze, jaws slackening, glasses wobbling in their hands. I was numb, but fury started building behind my ribs, tight and controlled. The groom's face went from shock to furious in a heartbeat, his mouth opening like he wanted to yell, but nothing came out. The pastor looked like his entire day was ruined mid-sentence. My desperate hope to stop this burnout instantly. I tried to stand, but my legs felt like they were betraying me. I wanted to help him, to make it right, or at least contain the mess, but there was no controlling what had just exploded in front of everyone. Emily's voice didn't waver as she kept talking, explaining how she never wanted to hurt anyone, how this had been tearing her apart. Her confession was a public unmasking of everything, and somehow it was like every eye in the room was suddenly piercing me, demanding to know what I had to do with this. I didn't say a word. I wanted to scream at her, to shout that this wasn't the time or place, that she was ruining everything we'd all been so careful to hide. But there was no anger in me then, just this cold, tight fury that wrapped itself around my chest. I could see the guests shifting in their seats, whispering, gasping. The weight of that silence was worse than any outburst. It was the sound of disbelief, of 1,000 thoughts colliding and no one knowing what to say. And somehow, beneath that fury, there was this strange sadness that curled in my gut. Because despite everything, it hit me in that moment how much she had loved both of them. How confused and broken she must have felt to stand there and shatter all of our carefully constructed lies. The groom finally broke the silence, his voice low and shaking as he asked her to leave. But she didn't move. She stayed there, pale and trembling, like she was waiting for her own punishment to start. I wanted to hate her for ruining everything, for putting me here in front of everyone, but all I could feel was this raw, aching vindication. Because no matter what had led to this, people finally knew the truth. I guess part of me wondered if it was better that way, even if it hurt like hell. And just like that, the air shifted. The ceremony was over, but the silence after her confession was heavier than any scream could have been. I thought it was over, but the silence that followed said otherwise. I still remember the moment she smiled at me. Not a crack in her face, not hesitation, just that cold, knowing smile, like she'd been waiting for this exact second. The whole room went quiet, like someone had flipped a switch. She didn't even look at me. Instead, she faced the crowd with this calmness that felt anything but innocent. Then she said it, slow and clear. "Finally, you told them yourself." I swear, the gasp rippled through the room like a wave crashing on glass. The way she said it, wasn't that what I feared? That she'd make me the one who admitted everything? But there was something else underneath, something I couldn't put my finger on at first. It was like she was tipping the scales, pulling the strings I didn't even know she held. I wanted to shout, to scream, but I was sitting there frozen, the words lodged somewhere in my throat. Her voice didn't waver, didn't soften or falter. She wasn't the victim here. Suddenly, I was the one caught in the spotlight, the one whose secrets were splattered for everyone to see. And she was the one who'd built this stage, piece by piece, waiting for me to step into it. Her eyes scanned the crowd briefly, then locked back on me like she owned every inch of the room. "You thought you could expose me," she said, her tone almost amused. "But you were standing in the spotlight I'd built for you." There it was, her elegant revenge laid bare. No yelling, no accusations, just pure, effortless control. I hated that I felt powerless, like I'd been outplayed. But beneath the anger was something raw and hollow. Grief that I'd let it come to this, that we were both broken in ways I hadn't even admitted to myself. Maybe that's what stung the most. Not her winning, but how quietly everything had shifted beneath me. The crowd's eyes flicked between us, and I could see some of them leaning in, like they were suddenly on her side or at least intrigued by her calm dominance. She wasn't just talking to me. She was letting the whole room see that she'd survived, that she wasn't the one to pity. She was the one who'd taken control, no matter what it cost us. I remember my hands clenched tight on my lap, heart thudding like it was trying to break free. Every word she said sliced through the shame, and I couldn't tell if I was more angry or broken. She never raised her voice, never lost her cool. That was the worst kind of wound, the kind that can't be bandaged with apologies or explanations. I wanted to look away, to find any excuse to run, but something about the way she held herself pulled me back in, made me listen. Her final words echoed long after she spoke. "This is just the beginning, not the end." And with that, she stepped out of the spotlight herself, leaving me alone, exposed in the space she'd crafted perfectly. I realized then, maybe I wasn't as in control as I liked to think. Maybe I had handed her that power without even noticing. It hurt, more than I expected, but oddly, there was a flicker of relief too. Like finally, the tangled mess between us was out in the open, and there was no pretending anymore. I thought it was over. But as I sat there, the unsettling quiet in the room started to press in, telling me that whatever game we'd been playing had just taken a sharp turn, and I wasn't sure where it would end. I stood in the center of that cold banquet hall, clutching the stack of papers in my shaking hands. Everyone was watching. The priest paused mid-ritual, his face frozen in disbelief. I took a breath, deep, steady. I didn't raise my voice once. The truth was loud enough. I laid the first piece of proof on the altar, a printed conversation between him and some girl I'd never heard of. The messages were cold, deliberate, proof of every lie he told. I saw the whispering start immediately, like waves rippling through the crowd. I could feel my parents' eyes burning into me. They looked shattered, like the ground beneath their feet was cracking. I forced myself to speak clearly, each word measured. "These aren't just idle words. This is what you chose to say, to hide." I held up the ultrasound photo next. Silent. No need to add anything more. The room went quiet again. You could hear the faint rustle of paper as the wind caught the edges. Finally, the last piece, the confession he wrote but never thought I'd see. Handwritten, full of regret and excuses. He thought it'd save him somehow, but it just exposed everything. I laid it out slow so everyone could see, could feel what I had to carry for months. The priest's hand trembled as he reached for the pages. I caught a flicker in his eyes, not anger, not disbelief, but a tired kind of sorrow. It was like, for a moment, even he wanted this to be a mistake. But the truth was undeniable. My voice didn't crack, but inside I felt the blood drain from my face. This was it, the final unmasking. The mask slipped clean off him. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about every moment I ignored the signs, every time I told myself I'd been imagining things. Maybe I should have seen it coming. But part of me wanted to believe he'd never do that. My parents stood stiff, their faces a mixture of grief and confusion. The people who came to celebrate us were now witnesses to my breaking. They whispered behind their hands, eyes darting between me and him. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He finally spoke, quietly, almost a whisper. "You're ruining everything." But I knew the real damage was done long before tonight, and it wasn't me who caused it. It was the lies he buried deep inside us. I felt a hollow emptiness settle in my chest as I looked at the broken man in front of me. Triumph tasted bitter with loss. I'd won, but it was an empty victory. The reality was that nothing could fix this now. The priest cleared his throat, trying to regain control, but it was useless. The moment had cracked the foundation. Every smile, Every promise was gone. I'd thought this confrontation would bring relief, but all I felt was the weight of what was left behind. The guests started drifting away, some shaking their heads, others avoiding my eyes. My parents didn't say a word. I couldn't meet their gaze anymore. I was a storm they never saw coming. And as I gathered the proofs, folded each one carefully, I realized something. This wasn't just an ending. It was the moment everything shattered, and I still wasn't sure if I wanted to pick up the pieces or walk away forever. The room felt empty the second they all started leaving. Glasses clinked one last time, voices dropped off, heels tapping on the floor like my heartbeat slowing down. He was there, still on his knees, his mouth open, eyes desperate, and all I could feel was this huge wave of relief crushing everything else. Relief that the truth was out, that I didn't have to pretend anymore, even if it meant everything was falling apart. He begged, said my name like he was pleading for a chance to fix something unfixable. "Please, can we just talk inside?" "You're overreacting," he said, voice cracking, and I remember hearing how small it sounded compared to the chaos from before. I just shook my head, didn't even look at him. I didn't want to see the apology, the fake promises, or the regret. I just wanted it all to stop. Emily was by the door, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling. She tried to explain herself, but it was like words were choking her. I never wanted any of this," she stammered. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I nodded, but not because I felt better or because I believed her. She just looked broken, lost, and I didn't have the energy to hate her anymore. She turned and walked away, disappeared into the night with her sobs swallowed by the cold air. I stood there, in my dress, the one everyone had been celebrating just an hour ago. The fabric felt heavy now, like it was soaked with more than just champagne and sweat. It was soaked with everything I wished I could undo. Everyone was gone, except the wind that started to pick up around the back doors, pulling at the lace of my veil until it tore loose. That little piece of delicate white fabric floated up and away, just like the illusion I'd been holding on to so tightly. For a moment, I watched it drift, and I think I almost thanked the wind. It was the first thing that didn't feel sharp or painful. It wasn't a promise or a lie. It was just gone. I walked outside, the cold air hitting me like a slap. The garden was empty except for the scattered petals on the grass, crushed underfoot by guests who had already disappeared into their cars or taxis. The moon was out, casting this pale light over everything. I could hear the distant hum of the city and the soft rustle of trees, but no one was here with me. It was quiet in a way I never expected after so much noise. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying not to shiver, trying not to let the emptiness swallow me whole. It was relief, yeah, but also this void where hope used to live. It was like I was standing at the edge of something new, but I didn't know what. Old dreams shattered on the floor inside, and out here, only dark and cold and the echo of a life I was supposed to start but never would. Part of me was angry, part of me numb, and part of me, this tiny, stubborn part, was proud. Proud that I finally saw clearly, that I wasn't willing to stay chained to a lie. Maybe it was foolish, or maybe it was brave. I didn't care. I just wanted to breathe without holding my breath for the other shoe to drop. I leaned against the wall, my dress catching on the rough brick, and I realized I didn't have to smile anymore. I didn't have to answer questions or explain myself. For the first time, I was free, from the fiancé, from the party, from the future that was never mine. The night felt endless, and I wanted to stay here forever. Just me, and the cold air, and the broken pieces I refused to pick up. But the silence wouldn't last. Somewhere, a door slammed inside, and I knew the storm wasn't over yet. I slid the ring into the velvet box with more calm than I expected. It wasn't sharp pain or anger, just this steady weight in my chest like I'd been holding my breath for too long. The box clicked shut, and for once, it felt like I was the one deciding what came next. I wasn't handing something over because I was forced or broken. I was doing it because this chapter wasn't mine to keep anymore. I walked to the counter at the jewelry store, feeling the cool glass and the quiet hum of the place press around me. The woman behind the counter didn't ask questions, which was a relief. I didn't want to explain, or justify, or even say the word why. I just handed her the box and the certificate, and she nodded without a word. A quick exchange. Done. Canceling the honeymoon was harder in some ways. I stared at the email confirmation for longer than I wanted to admit, fingers hovering over cancel reservation. The thought of false hope lingered in every word, sunsets and promises that felt like lies. But when I finally clicked it, it felt like clearing out a room that smelled like someone I no longer was. Walking away from all of it, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed out this long, slow sigh like I was finally letting air in for the first time in months. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Letting go rarely is. But I also knew I couldn't stay stuck in someone else's shadow anymore. Later, I sat alone in my apartment, the silence thick but not suffocating this time. My mind flipped through those endless nights when I'd lie awake, going over every conversation, every smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. I spent so long blaming him, wondering how someone could tear down the world we'd planned together so completely. But now, there was something quieter growing inside me, a kind of acceptance, like a new shape my heart could hold without breaking. It wasn't clear to me how to explain it, but I wasn't bitter. Not anymore, at least not in the way I thought I would be. There was a sadness there, sure, like a season ending, but it wasn't drowning me. It was a memory I could finally hold without it burning. I thought forgiveness would mean forgetting, but I learned that's not how it works. It's about not letting someone live rent-free in your head, even when what they did still stings. It's about walking away with your pieces intact, even if those pieces don't fit the same way they did before. Looking back, I don't think he ruined my life. He ended a version of it, a version I convinced myself was real, but I'm the one who's got to choose what comes next. I'm the one who has to keep moving, even if it feels like starting over. There's a strange kind of strength in that. Not the loud, victorious kind you see in movies. It's quiet and steady. It's pulling yourself up and saying, this isn't all there is. It's knowing that I'm not defined by what fell apart, but by how I pick up the pieces. I spent months trapped in that anger, replaying everything like a broken record. But now, when I close my eyes, I don't see the fight anymore. I see a future that's mine, not someone else's script. It's not perfect or easy, but it's real. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like enough. I thought it was over. But the silence that followed said otherwise.